that it's the same for you and me. Of course you do. Same winners, same losers.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, here with Colton Ogburn, and these are all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in The Penguin, Episode 7, the penultimate episode of this fantastic series. So the series has served as an origin story for the Penguin. Despite him already being an established villain in The Batman, this series has shown him elevate from a lower-level underling of Carmine Falcone to a full-fledged villain and worthy foe in his own right. Oz has wanted to climb that ladder to the top since he was just a boy, and ironically, the journey to this metaphorical top has been a journey down into hell. We've seen Oz literally descend into the depths of Gotham with his new underground lair, but he's also descended further and further down into that underbelly of Gotham that has always given him the upper hand in this war. Now, we've talked a lot about the Batman and how this series used the Riddler's Flood to demonstrate a literal divide between that of the elite and the downtrodden. The poor and those who live in the real world were most affected by the Riddler's Flood, while the rich elites in their ivory towers were spared. This series has used brilliant imagery to depict that divide, with various shots of the city skyline being divided by bridges and train tracks into the lower levels of Gotham where the Penguin operates. And I just love that Oz has discovered that to achieve true power and become the crime lord he's always wanted to be, he doesn't have to climb up, he has to climb down. And this episode shows Oz literally struggling to climb down a ladder as a boy, and it ends with him jumping past that ladder and even deeper into Gotham. And then, after that leap of faith down that same sewer ladder, he literally emerges from Gotham's depths. Oz coming up out of that ground is the exact moment that he became the Penguin.
Don't call him that.
The villain.
Person, we are doing a video. Why are you on your phone?
Actually, Doug, I am reading a novel.
Oh, then I'll get my phone out too and look at pictures of my friends' babies. That's a good baby. Oh, that's a good baby. Oh, I don't like that baby. That's an ugly baby.
You know, Doug, maybe instead of doom scrolling on your phone and judging your friends' babies, you should try reading, like this book I'm reading on web novel. It's called The First Legendary Beastmaster. It's an Ninja story about a dirt poor kid named Carl who is given an injection to awaken his affinity with magic, and this happens on his last day of middle school.
Oh, wow, that sounds fun.
Yeah, now this is also who can become a member of the elite. These are leaders of the nation who are blessed with magical abilities. The novel features multiple beast taming elements with rich character designs for each beast, but it is cool how the perspectives of the beasts help shape Carl's growth as he moves from youth to adulthood. The story takes place in a world where the nation is surrounded by enemies, both humans and monsters, but it always centers around Carl as he tries to become the world's first legendary beastmaster. So as the story goes on, it gets increasingly dark, but it just keeps drawing you in because the beast companions introduce these lighter plot points. It's a really fun book. Now, the battles are intense, but it is a really fun, easy read and way better than judging your friends' babies on social media.
Oh, so a web novel just has the one book?
Oh no, man. Web Novel, the sponsor of this video, is a great app with thousands of books, manga, and other great stories. And it is also super easy to use. You click our link in the description, download the Web Novel app, and then search The First Legendary Beastmaster. Click Add to Library, and then read, and then you got it. It's that easy to read this story and many, many others on this site. So click our link below. You won't regret it. This app is so much fun. Now, the title of the episode is Top Hat. Now, this is a reference to Oz's favorite film that they watch later in the episode. But of course, it's also a reference to one of the Penguin's classic comic accessories, his top hat. But there's actually a deeper meaning to this title. We've mentioned how the Cobbs are all about masking their actual status with the high society air. Oz's apartment, Francis's gown, all means to brush over who they actually are in favor of who they want to be. The 1935 film that shares this episode's title is about mistaken identities and high society life. This film is Oz's favorite because it's what he envisions for himself in the near future. The theatrical set pieces and ballrooms are just as fantastical as what Oz and Francis are doing at the end. This high-class life that they are living is no more than an act. What the hell? Was that you?
No, it wasn't me.
No one's ever knocked at our door before. Colton, can you take over?
Okay, so the opening song is called Islands in the Stream by Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. The song is titled after the Ernest Hemingway book of the same name. This book is about a man who reflects on his life while on an island in the Caribbean. Metaphorically, however, it is about how we are our own individual islands in this stream of life, and how even in our personal isolations, we are still connected to those around us through that same stream. In relation to Oz and his mother, the stream is more so a stream of time. As Oz grows up and becomes his own personal island, he's still forever connected to his mother through that stream. Even through moments of distance, the connection between the two will always be a crucial part of Oz's character. It's the whole reason Oz is the way he is. Now, here we can see Miss Cobb looking at an invoice. Now, in the previous episode, she implies that her husband never pays the bills, saying,
"Nah, if you can't get the heat back on, I'll go to Rex.
Now, it's clear that while Oz and his brothers were growing up, Francis was the main person that they had to rely on. Now, the Cobbs apartment is nearly identical to the layout of Calvin's apartment. Miss Cobb even says in episode 5 that it looks exactly like the apartment she had with her boys.
This looks like the apartment I have my boys. I hate it here.
Now, Miss Cobb calls Oz my big, strong bull of a boy, something that she still refers to him as in episode 1.
You're my big, strong bull of a boy.
Now, when Francis begins to play with Jack and Benny, Oz has the same reaction he did in episode 6 to Francis complimenting Victor. Anytime his mother's love and attention isn't directly at him and him alone, something dark begins to stir within Oz. Now, the Cobbs apartment is very similarly decorated to Oz's current apartment. Now, while the apartment itself is low income and in a bad area of Gotham, it's chock full of trinkets and games and even a computer. Everything with the Cobbs is very surface level. As long as it looks like they're affluent, they think everything is fine. And this show has been all about Oz finally going deeper than the surface with his literal and metaphorical descent deeper and deeper into Gotham and deeper into his life of crime. Now, when Oz sees Rex's car, he says,
"Damn, look at those rims."
Calling back to Victor trying to steal the rims off Oz's car in episode 1. Here, Rex has a cigar, something that Oz is now seen with often. Rex, as we know, is Oz's childhood hero, so it makes sense that he'd emulate everything he does. So here we are seeing the real Rex versus the one that Oz loves and really has created in his own mind. Oz says in the first episode,
"Know everyone's names, though."
We see that that is true here. He asks his crew if they know Francis Cobb's son, but for an entirely different reason than what Oz had originally implied. That reason being that they were all under his thumb. He didn't know their names out of care, he knew them out of business and self-preservation. Now, on the side of a building, we can see a DARE poster advertising for people to stay away from drugs. This represents what Francis says later.
Drugs is drugs. Total shit.
Now, this flashback to the 90s shows the same issue that Gotham is dealing with now. Back then, they had a DARE campaign, and now it's just rebranded as Stop Drops, the name of the drugs from the Batman and this show. I did want to let you guys know we have merch! ScreenCrushMerch.com has lots of awesome nerddom-inspired designs from comic book parody shirts, Galaxy Far, Far Away, and many, many, many more. Shopping our merch store is the best way to support the channel. Thank you so much for your support. Now, here we can see Wayne Tower in the background high above the entire city, reminding us that the Waynes are part of that elite and corrupt group of Ivory Tower people. But it being the tallest building also echoes the themes of the Batman watching over the city of Gotham. It's really almost as if this spectrum that Gotham exists on is a bit of an Ouroboros. The tail and the head are connected. If you descend far enough into Gotham's depths, both literally and metaphorically, you'll find yourself at the top, like Oz. And the same is seemingly true for Bruce Wayne. If he goes high enough into the skies of Gotham, both as an elite and as the Bat, and as the man with a very high moral standard, such as not killing, Bruce's ascension, like Oz's descension, has them on a crash course for collision. And that is true for so many of Batman's heroes and villains. Like in The Dark Knight, we hear the Joker say,
To them, you're just a freak. Like me.
Now here we can also see the La Couronne restaurant that we saw in episode 3, again showing the mirror between Vic and Oz's childhood origins. Now this train is going to Gotham Heights, a far less crime-ridden area than the East End. Now during the No Man's Land comic run, Gotham Heights became a bit of a safe haven for the refugees who lost their homes during that earthquake that wrecked Gotham City. Now here Oz picks up the token that we saw in the bin of the boys' room things that we saw in episode 5. Now this is the first time in this episode that we hear the Penguin's theme.
Screw you guys!
It comes in right after Oz feels offended by the difference between his brother's physical abilities and his own. Once again showing us that Oz is an animal of cowardice. The second he felt as though his brothers were picking on him because of his disability, the Penguin rears its head. He's a monster in these instances, and he sees all of his actions as defending himself rather than harming others. When people call Oz the Penguin, they are making fun of the way he looks and the way he moves. Oz has associated that name, the Penguin, with negative negative emotions because they are picking on him. So Oz never wanted to be referred to as the Penguin, yet now here he is acting on those same negative emotions that he's always associated with that name. And Sophia never wanted to be the Hangman, but now here she is going in her father's footsteps and the Falcone family. So in the origin comic, Penguin, Pain, and Prejudice, Oz murders his brothers as well for the attention of his mother, whom he had a similar relationship with as he does in this series. His mother was the only person who showed him any form of compassion, and he would turn to dark and violent tendencies to win over her affection, something that he learned from his father. Now, in that comic, his brothers ridiculed and made fun of him because of his appearance and love for birds, and they actually go as far as to attack their brother and his pet birds. Oz then secretly murders all of them one by one, even murdering his own father just for the attention of his mother, the only one who actually cares about him. But in this series, Oz really is painted as just a selfish, jealous, downright evil person who killed his brothers, who were actually portrayed as decent kids that loved their brother.
Yeah, you okay?
Now, this song is Only You by Yazoo. This song is about the separation from a past relationship and reflecting on both the pain of separating and the hope of rekindling. However, in this context, it's more of a promise from Oz to his mother and vice versa. Oz believes that he is the only thing his mom needs. He feels little to no remorse for separating from his brothers, and he's now looking towards the future of it being only him and his mom. So Frances dries Oz off and comforts him just like he did for her in the previous episode. This is exactly what Sophia was referring to later in the episode when she points out,
Someone shaped him.
everything that Oz does is learned from his time with his mother. He knows what his mom wants because that's what he saw and heard his entire life.
Promise me that she'll get me every goddamn thing I deserve.
Now, when Frances asks where the boys are, Oz lies and says they went to see Beetlejuice. Now, this is kind of ironic because Beetlejuice is about dead characters who are trying to interact with the living, paralleling Oz's brothers who are gone but still part of the narrative that he's making through his life. Also, like the Matlins in Beetlejuice, these ghosts are still haunting the lives of Oz and Frances, living among them every day.
Jack's downtown.
That's all.
This whole time.
So he's gonna get it
Jack's
figured out.
downtown.
I think it's really cool that the first truly evil thing Oz did was kill his brothers in the depths of Gotham, and now we've seen that come full circle with Oz going back into those same depths.
Place. Calling me home.
Now, before Frances can continue to question Oz, Oz quickly says,
Yeah, I made your favorite.
this is something that Oz does often as a means of deflection. He's gifting his mother something to take her mind off the hurt that he has just caused. Just like he did with Sophia, Eve, Sal, everyone. It's a learned behavior from his childhood. Now, Miss Cobb mentions how she wants to live in one of these penthouses, which Oz says he promised her here.
Told her I'd get her a penthouse.
We're seeing how all of Oz's motivations lead back to Frances and the many promises he's made in order to keep her happy. Now, here in the background, we see a painting of a matador being impaled by a bull with their muleta laying on the ground. This painting is showing us the matador's downfall, the loss of control over the bull, and the consequences of arrogance. Oz is the matador in this painting. He has instigated the bull over and over again, and he is now facing the music. He is now facing the consequences of his own actions. His own pride has become his downfall, something that we've actually noted previously. Additionally, the muleta on the ground is a symbol of Oz's loss of power. The muleta is the tool for controlling the bull, and with it being on the ground, it implies a loss of power and control. Now, here we can also see Jack's baseball mitt on the table, and the picture that Frances has hanging in her house of the boys is also on the table in the background. Now, the film that Oz picked to watch with his mom is the 1935 movie Top Hat, a musical comedy about mistaken identities. It's most famously known for its dance numbers starring Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, who Frances mentions later on in the episode.
I'll be tap dancing on your grave like Ginger and Rogers.
Now, this scene is edited together brilliantly. The toys in the background are shown drowning in the buckets of rain, showing the audience the horrific ends of Benny and Jack without being over-the-top gruesome and showing two kids drown. And I think that is just yet another perfect example of how much attention and care this series was given. It is a truly just really well-made show worthy of that HBO brand, because yeah, they could have gone the easy route and shown the kids gasping for air and drowning, but having just a shot of that closed door in the sewer and hearing them crying for help, that is just so well done and echoes what we're seeing with Oz. He descends into that same door later on, going deep into the depths of Gotham, and it's almost as if he is crying for help as well. So back in episode 5, Oz says that his brothers were taken by the city.
City took them.
Which is technically true, but in that episode, Oz follows that up by saying,
There was nothing I was too weak.
Now, while Oz lied about just how exactly his brothers died, he is honest with his emotions. He felt weak in that moment with Jack and Benny. He thought they were making fun of him, and his weakness spun into something darker, leading to his brother's ultimate demise, and reminding us why Oz can go so dark when he thinks he's being made fun of, like in the first episode of this series when he kills Alberto Falcone for laughing at him. Now, Sophia is keeping Miss Cobb in Carmine's office, and as much as she tries to distance herself from her father and everything that came with being a Falcone, she winds up in the same spot as Carmine, just like last episode. She is fulfilling exactly what her father saw for her, like she says,
He put me in an institution, and the second I got out, I walked right into another one.
Now, this series has handled both Oz and Sophia so well, and I love how Sophia is realizing that the villain her father wanted her to be has come full circle. Now, when Sophia confronts Francis, she says that she can't wait to tap dance on her grave, calling back to this line about Carmine's grave.
And as soon as I had the chance, I danced on his grave.
Now, last week we talked about how Francis is genuinely knowledgeable in the life that Oz leads. She knows the ins and outs of the crime world.
He's working them to get at the Falcones. They're the bigger fish.
And we see that here. She can hold her own against the Hangman. She even trips up Sophia a couple of times.
What are you gonna do next? Dye your hair pink? Get an ass tattoo? I'll teach your daddy a lesson.
Francis, despite her illness, can be just as ruthless as Sophia, and that ruthlessness has seeped into Oz during his childhood and made him into what he is today.
Or is Oz keeping them locked up in some East Side slum too?
And I mean, she's technically not wrong.
I give it to you. You got me there.
Right. Now, Francis has another episode and name drops Oz's father.
It's for Christ's sake, that's your job, ain't it?
Now, in the comics, Aiden is actually the name of one of Oz's twin sons, who Oz kills with his umbrella in the 2024 Penguin comic run. Now, Sophia is once again in the kitchen instead of the war room. We are spending much more time in the untainted areas of the mansion rather than the room so deeply entrenched with everything Carmine Falcone represented. Julian says that he knows a psychiatrist at the home. Now, while this might be a reach, Matt Reeves has hinted at expanding the Batman Crime Saga universe and its characters through HBO. Now, in this universe, we have the Joker in Arkham, so maybe this was a hint at Harley Quinn. Now, after Sal bursts into Penguin's operation, he tells Oz that he's just like a sewer rat.
Just like a sewer rat.
Which Penguin heavily protested against being labeled in the Batman.
I ain't no rat!
If anything, he's more so.
Penguin man, the sewer.
Now, when Sal dies, Oz says,
I beat you, Sal. You hear me? I beat you.
Mirroring his reaction in the Batman.
I got you! I got you!
But also emphasizing his ego problem. The first time he tried to kill Sal, he told the guard to say, "This is from Oz." His need for notoriety never ceases. Oz is even disappointed to see Sal die so quickly because he wanted his moment to gloat about winning. Now, the showrunners have said how we're not supposed to like Oz by the end of this series, and this episode really cements that. Between this monologue and the interaction between Sophia and Francis, we can see clearly that it's not just,
I got a bum leg, no father. But those things don't make you a monster.
Oz is the evil in Gotham. As much as his mother, his environment, his economic situation can aid in making him a villain, we see that in this interaction, he is truly evil down to the core. All he cares about is being at the top and making the little guys know it was him that got him there. Now, here we get a full circle moment where Oz takes the Falcone ring off of Sal, the ring that started the series with Alberto showing it off in the first episode.
This is power, right?
And that spurred this whole gang war in Gotham. Now that ring has finally returned to Oz, who is no longer pawning it off to the big guys like Sal, but wearing it for himself. It's his show now. He is the big bad. And hey guys, by the way, I wanted to remind you that we're going on tour with our ScreenCrush live show. Come meet me, Ryan, and the gang live and in person.
Well, what happens at a live show anyways?
Oh man, we're going to show things that they won't let us show here on YouTube, and we're going to have nerdy debates like, for instance, I like Joker too.
What the is this? Are you kidding me?
We're also going to have special guests, exclusive videos and merch, trivia, but most importantly, I want to see you guys live and in person. We did a live show back in February, and it was so much fun just to be surrounded by our fellow nerds.
Oh yeah. Is it gonna be like a mini Comic-Con?
Exactly! So the full list of tickets and dates are in the description below. Our next show is on November 14th in Boston, Massachusetts, so buy tickets now before we sell out. Now, back to the Penguin. Now, here we can see Brookside Children's Home, and it's a stark contrast to the Gotham orphanage where Riddler grew up. Again, showing us the difference in treatment to the upper class and the lower class. Gia is in a very interesting situation in context of the message of the Riddler and the series as a whole. The Riddler monologued about how Bruce Wayne wasn't technically an orphan because he had money. Now, while Gia also comes from an affluent family, she's confined in these 4 white walls and stuck to live in her loneliness. Now, while it's not as traumatic as the Riddler's growing up was, it's nowhere near what a child should live in. And we see that emphasized with the cuts between Arkham and Brookside. Now, the relationship between Sophia and Gia is fascinating. Sophia at one point in her life was what Gia is now, shelved away and living in solitude, pushed away for being a problem. While Sophia did this as a means of help for Gia, she's doomed her to the foster care system for the rest of her childhood. Sophia has now fully become Carmine, and she realizes that at the end of this visit. Now, when Sophia sees Gia's scars, she says, "Don't hurt yourself because of them." Advice that she's giving from experience, but also a mirror of what Oz told Vic in the beginning of the episode.
Oz, I'm sorry. Your guilt!
Both Sophia and Oz are telling these kids exactly what they wanted to hear during these points in their lives. These self-harm scratches on Gia also kind of mirror the scratches that Sophia did to her own neck. Now, Sophia confesses to Rush,
I want to be free.
but a snap second later she says,
I want Oz to feel pain.
We're seeing the Gigante Falcone fight in real time. Sophia wants to escape the burden that her father put on her, but it's all she knows and the only way she's ever coped with anything. She doesn't want to be involved with this life anymore. She's tired. She constantly feels the weight of Carmine looking over her shoulder, but it's the life that she's forced to live because she keeps bringing herself back into it. This whole conversation is even happening in the war room as opposed to the kitchen where she's been the last couple of scenes. Now, Sophia repeats Francis's sentiment of
Same winners, same losers.
And we see this thematically with the score. Penguin's theme is a quicker, flashier version of Carmine's.
Nothing you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
He's exactly like Carmine now, just a bit of a rebrand, and he even has the ring to boot. Oz has fully become like Rex. He believes that he's doing good. Last episode talking about how he's the guy in the neighborhood who takes care of people.
You know how meaningful that is, Vic? To be the guy in the neighborhood who takes care of people?
Meanwhile, he's just inadvertently decimated an entire block. You could argue that maybe him and Rex are good in some subjective sense, depending upon what they're doing, but in reality, they do more harm than good to the city. Now, when Francis is getting dressed up to make herself feel better, this calls back to episode 2 when she does the same thing in her apartment, dolled up in a sparkly dress and ignoring the world's issues. When she takes Oz dancing, she tells him,
You have to promise me that you're gonna make something of yourself, that you'll get me every goddamn thing I deserve.
And he replies,
And I ain't gonna quit till I do.
And from the looks of this show, he's kept that promise. Everything Oz does has been to secure that goal that his mother instilled in him all those years ago. While Oz's nature is evil and greedy, he wasn't nurtured into anything better. If anything, he was groomed for the worst. Now, we've mentioned before how Oz is like the phoenix rising from the ashes to claim his throne, but it seems now that he's just bringing the ashes everywhere with him. This entire part of an already down on their luck town is now ruined, and who knows how many have now died, how many are injured, and the only thing Oz cares about is getting himself out of the situation. For all of the distaste he has for the Riddler, they are one and the same. Now, this is again Detective Marcus Wise, who we saw Sophia come to in episode 2 of the series, bribing him with the drops. Marcus is actually from the Robin comics, and much like his show counterpart, he was a corrupt member of the Gotham City Police Department. Now, the closing song is a cover of You Really Got Me by the Kinks. This song is an anthem about being captivated by someone who really got you. In this context, however, I think it's more of an admittance. Sophia really got Oz this time. While he's the one usually pulling the rug out from under those he scams, it's Sophia who has the high ground this time.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Well, guys, those are all the Easter eggs we caught in this episode. Let us know if we missed any down in the comments below. I want to give a huge shout out to my co-writer on this episode, Lee Mazzio. And hey guys, don't forget to download the web novel app with our link in the description below. If you're new here, please feel free to subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Colton Ogburn.